let's grab some wine. It's funny, I'd forgotten that I was in the bathrobe for this race. That's pretty hilarious. This was definitely before I upgraded. Well, so I've still got all the same stuff in the background. But this was when I was just using my basement lights. 120 laps, we can make that all the way on fuel, so we'll only pit if we have to for or I think I had the bigger studio lights. But yeah, different lighting for sure. And the 4-car. Get in there, get qualified, and see what we got for him. Parker Alexander in here, Cody Dutton in here, Victor Bartlett. What was my iRating? 4.3K when this one feels like ages ago. Is always on top of it when it comes to qualifying in these cars. His single lap speed is. This was worthy of some respect. Very early in Cody and me racing with each other too. We hadn't raced against each other in all that many races. And this was back when I was actually leading before he knuckled down and took this championship back from me. I completely backed off of it. Didn't even attempt a second lap. Third place in the number 4 car for qualifying is not bad at all. I missed where I lost time there. We got third on grid right now. Over 2/10 off of Cody's time. That's crazy how much quicker he was than I was there. Parker Alexander was a full 10th off of him. For Cody Dutton and a 964 for Parker Alexander. Those are some impressive times. I'm still missing just a little bit in terms of, obviously, in terms of that short lap speed and comfort on cold tires. Move the cursor out of the way. G-Unit, how you doing? Just logged off work for the last time in 2021. Time to run some races. Good luck to you, man. That's awesome. The year is coming to a close. Hopefully 2022 will actually be meaningfully better, and we can start putting this COVID thing behind us, I hope. Last 2 years have been nuts. Good stuff. Good racing. Was obviously disappointed that okay, I just put moisturizer on my hands, and now that's going to make picking up this wine glass that I've got here very difficult. The moisturizer helps with the eczema, but it just makes handling objects more difficult for sure. Or at least I try to have my mods until it settles in a little bit. So I did print out the pledge. It's right down here under my monitor, so I got it. Not having to grab the phone to read it off that anymore. I just printed out the pledge. I had talked about printing that out and placing it somewhere visible for so long. Finally doing that has made a market improvement on things. It's been very nice. There's some decently fast guys. I mean, when I was it's a lesson for the new year is when you come up with an idea or something easy to do that you can do to improve your life. Just do it. Especially if it's something that you can do one time and just tuck it away and have it be done. By the way, is it working having me talking over myself, or should I drop the volume on the YouTube video a little bit? I don't know how that's I don't know how that's working at all. Just put this on, put the whole qualifying run back on again so that we got something decent to show here as we wind down through the last 10 seconds of qualifying. So this video may be terrible because it's me talking over myself a lot. That may be very jarring to listen to. USA Firearms, Merry Christmas to you. How you doing? Happy New Year as well. Just hanging out, watching one what I think is probably my favorite race from the past year. There were several that really stood out. This one in particular, for a number of reasons, just was cool. So, hanging out, reminiscing on the year past, and enjoying one of the highlights from it.
Set a positive example with my behavior. To speak up against discrimination, hate speech, harassment, and abuse. To show integrity by honoring the rules, my opponents and my teammates. To stop, listen, and reassess if
little stumble there.
Told that my words or actions are harmful.
Lost my place reading.
To respect others, even if their sincere opinions are different from my own. Exclamation mark GLHF in my Twitch channel chat. Link in the description below this video if you would like to take the pledge yourself. Be part of making online gaming a better and more pleasant pace.
Wes, 18 months with the sub, man. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Wes. Really appreciate you, my man. Cheers to you. It's not water today.
Let's do this thing. Let's keep it clean. We got 14 of us. We should be able to run some decent laps without running.
Cody and his non-traditional paint scheme. Something different from the blue car that he normally runs, which is a tribute to one of the guys from his local racetrack. Very cool tribute. But in this one, he was in his black and red car. Parker Alexander in a really cool tribute, the Adam Petty number 45 Spree car.
All right.
We lost Adam way too young. I think about that often, how different that era of NASCAR would have played out had his accident at New Hampshire not happened. I'm so glad that we live in an era of NASCAR now, despite all of its flaws, where that's not something that's such a regular part of the sport anymore. Losing the stars due to accidents.
All right, man, let's get ready. Go get this thing. Do this.
Which isn't to say that racing is safe. There's always the risk and danger there for something to happen, but it's very much less a part of the sport than it used to be.
Good clean start.
It was a good clean start. Started anytime that you can get off the line off of a start and lock in the position that you were starting in without any real pressure coming from an attack or someone next to you. Just get single file quickly in the spot that you're supposed to be in. That's nice. Obviously, gaining a position is great. That's a nice bonus. But just locking into your position and settling in safely without contact is always a good feeling. Victor going to the inside of me right there.
We're not going to push the issue too hard.
I was not going at it as aggressively as he was, and then he overdrives it, and I get right back underneath him.
We'll go back after it if he slides up and gives it back to us, though.
Yeah, we'll take that. That worked well for us. You got a good run and is coming right back. And you see right here, you know, there are some guys who might really try to chop that run, block it. You put yourself into a risky position. Maybe the guy behind you backs out. Maybe he doesn't. Even if you feel like it's 100% on him and that he should have backed out and not run into you in a situation like that, your car is still wrecked or in a worse position than if you just yield that piece of real estate on the track at that time. So, for me personally, I try to not make those high-risk moves, particularly early in the race. It's a 120-lap race. Yummy, how you doing? Welcome. And Victor ended up opening the door for us on Parker, and we were able to get around Parker to the inside. So we end up settling out in third anyway. And again, Victor's he's running the tires, I think, harder than I want to run them right now.
Cody's running a different paint scheme than what he usually does. He's switched off of his usual blue.
120 laps at North Wilkesboro. This was back when the series was really running longer races. They've cut the length of these races back a little bit. Like, you know, now if North Wilkesboro shows up on the schedule, I think it's a 100 lap race rather than 120, or it might even be 90. I think it was 100 when we were there last. I'm doing well, Yummy. How are you doing?
Is overdriving those entries now.
Yeah, see, he's overheated. I think at least that he's overheated his right rear now. I'm taking a better arc, and that's allowing my right front. I'm sorry, he's overheated his right front, and I think that
really burnt up that right front.
Just based on looking at our different lines, he's washing in the center of the corner, whereas I'm rounding it better. I'm getting a nice sharp angle at the apex and able to carry a good run off the corner too. Although he's actually getting pretty decent run off. He's diamonding the corners more than I am, so really it's in the center where I'm picking up time right now.
Outside. Still outside. Clear.
I love North Wilkesboro. And the combination of North Wilkesboro, which is the 87 version of the track, as best as iRacing could approximate it, and these cars from 1987, this is a really fun car and track combination. I think that these cars drive really well here. They're fun to race. Cody's just sailed off into the lead, which Cody often does. You're just relaxing, Yummy? Yummy, yeah, man, I am too. How are you feeling, by the way? I think you mentioned that you were under the weather last time I saw you in chat.
Seems like we're gaining on Cody a little bit, too.
I am gaining on him a little bit. I was quicker the last lap, at least. He was 1.8 ahead. Now he's 1.4, so been chopping that lead down these last few laps.
He's hunting for grip up high.
I don't tend to go back and watch my own races all that much, but you pick up a lot of different details when you go back and watch something back.
May have found a little.
Your live won't go down without a fight. That's good to hear, man. I really hope that you get better. It's one of the things that I
missed it a little bit that lap.
Always dislike the most about getting sick is when you get to that point where you start forgetting what it was like to feel normal, where at least for that temporary moment in time, being sick and feeling crummy becomes your new normal. It's always such a good feeling when you get past that and you actually, you know, when you do get better and you wake up one day and you're like, oh, this is what normal felt like. This is nice. I wish that for you, Yummy. I hope that moment comes for you soon.
Just consistent. Consistent laps will do it.
We're chopping that advantage Cody has down by 1/10 of a second pretty steadily each lap right now. Line's looking pretty good. Doesn't look like I'm overdoing it on the tires at either end. I was hearing a little bit of tire squeal out of him.
Make him burn his stuff up if we can.
Yeah, he's not burning his stuff up. He's running a pretty good line. I've heard after having COVID, you'll have soreness, but it's nowhere near what it's like actually being down with it. Yeah, for sure. And COVID seems to affect everyone differently. I've been fortunate that I haven't caught it. I've also been pretty careful through this whole period, but you know, I'm fully vaxxed and boosted now. And I do go out some. I was just out at the grocery store yesterday, but I wear a mask when I go to the grocery store, which I don't really mind wearing a mask in the store. The things that I miss doing more are going out to bars and clubs, listening to live music, going to the gym and working out and things like that. I'm not going to go work out in a mask. That just doesn't sound fun to me.
Lap traffic to contend with before too long.
Yeah, that's true. It likely would have been much worse without the vaccine, Yummy. Private Morningwood, how you doing? Yeah, man. Thank you for the comment on the YouTube videos. Yeah, I stream at the times that are convenient for me, and that's definitely not going to be convenient for folks depending on where you are around the world or what's going on in your life. So that's why I like having the YouTube archive. Is that if you miss the live stream, you can still see the YouTube video, which is great. Wes, how you doing? Had the after effects of COVID for almost 2 months. Yeah, man. That I've had friends that have had really extended long-term effects from it, and some who have had, relatively mild cases that where they did get over it pretty quickly. Uh, it hits everyone differently. The thing is that it's definitely not just a normal common cold and not something you want to mess around with. It's not um you know the it's not certainly not as deadly as other diseases, but it's not something that should be messed with. It's definitely something that should be taken seriously. Pretending that, you know, just because it isn't some, like disaster movie caricature of itself, and that, therefore we should just do nothing and ignore it is, I think, flawed thinking in my opinion. But, some folks are pushing that. I don't agree with that. Private Morning, I got the bush yesterday. Couldn't find it anywhere in Colorado, so I had to wait until I visited family in Alabama to find it. Interesting. I just set up an appointment with Walgreens to get mine. I had to set it up like, I don't know, a week and a half in advance or something like that here. Let me, that life seems so far behind. It's crazy how I'm just so used to not going anywhere or doing much anymore. I have definitely settled into a new normal of spending a lot more time at home. I've also made some improvements to my home life that makes it more pleasant. Wes, you're going to sign up and get the booster tomorrow? I think that's a good idea, man. Definitely recommend it. I think unfortunately it's not going to go away until everyone has had it. People don't take it serious. So, it's possible that it could, at least if it I don't know that it's necessarily going to go away. It seems like it will sort of linger the way that the flu does, and there will be new variants that crop up. However, if and we'll probably have to fall into some kind of pattern if we want to protect ourselves against it of getting booster shots for our immunization every 6 months to a year, similar to the way that you vaccinate yourself against the flu. But at least at that point, we can return to a somewhat normal state of life, especially since there are, going to be new treatments and things that come into development too that will lessen the symptoms for those who do get it and improve their prognosis. So, yeah, So, I don't know where I was going with that, and I completely lost my train of thought, if I'm being honest. It's not going to go away until everyone has had it. Yeah, so it's not going to stop being a thing until everyone at least has some form of immunization for it. So even if you get sick with COVID and then you have immunity for it, that immunity doesn't last forever either.
Lap times are down to a 20.7 now.
The immunity from the vaccine or the immunity from having COVID is not permanent and doesn't always protect against the new variants. We also did flatten the curve, but only for a period. These spikes have been disturbing to me. And I think we've definitely learned something about the human condition, that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get all of us rowing in the same direction on any one thing. Private Morning, while wearing a mask, have you found anything prevents you from your glasses from fogging up. Positioning of the mask, that's been a real problem for me, is my glasses fog up. They're a little, it's usually because a little bit of air is escaping, like right here next to the nostrils, and going up and fogging the glasses that way. So if you've got one of those masks that has a little wire, and you can just get that formed down correctly so that the air goes out the sides like this as opposed to up under the glasses, that seems to help. There are a lot of issues that shouldn't be political, but at the end of the day, every issue is inherently political. Because what an issue being political means is that there is a discussion going on about something that has society-wide ramifications. So it's inevitable that certain issues and challenges and things that we face that don't just affect us individually but affect all of us as a society will come up, and we will have to tackle them as a collective rather than just as individuals. And so the first discussion is whether a particular issue is something that needs collective action to address it, or if it can be just addressed as individuals. There is still disagreement on that point when it comes to COVID. I think that this is a societal issue that requires a societal, a collective action to address it, rather than just something that each individual needs to worry about for themselves. But there are a lot of people who disagree with that. But that's the first level of political discussion. Then, if you actually get to a point where everyone agrees that societal action is needed to address something, the next political discussion that happens is what action gets taken. So, answering that double question, what action, if any, to take, is always an inherently political question. So I think the shame is that so much of the political discussions end up not dealing directly with the issue that's being discussed, but rather with other issues and grievances that may or may not be related to the issue at hand. It would be nice if we could get to a place where we can actually deal directly and openly and honestly with one another on those issues, on things in general.
I worked on it there and changed it a couple times.
Moist towelette, things that you use for work that help a little bit with the fogging. Yeah, I guess I could carry something around like that. I don't necessarily like carrying that around, like extra stuff around with me for that, but that could definitely help. I usually just defog the glasses on my shirt. But absolutely worth the $6 if that works for you.
You gotta be so gentle getting off the floor up to the wall. Yeah.
10-4, waiting on that.
Cody has such a clean driving style with these cars. He's very aggressive, but also, you know, it's controlled aggression. A lot of raw talent. He drives by feel a lot better than I do.
You're doing a damn good job, you know that?
I tend to need to warm up for races. He can hop in cold and run much faster than I can, even with practice a lot of the time. Private Morningwood, thank you for the tier 1 sub. Really appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much. Let's get some sub hype and chat for Private Morningwood if you all don't mind. Lap 46 already. I've been rambling. This race has just been going by real quick. We also did we not have our first caution until lap 40, what was it, lap 40 of the race? That's pretty impressive little run there. Nice pacing right here. The race just kind of like You know, he had some good battling up front, or at the start with Victor and with Parker. But, you know, then the race kind of settled into a easy cadence. We got the caution, and now I'm using my fresh tires. Cody's lead has been erased. I'm coming back after him. He had kind of established himself on that first run. But now things are different. I've got new tires. Any advantage he had from his tires being less worn is gone. I'm on attack mode. And I'm almost spinning myself out.
Too loose.
Alex Sumption, how you doing? Cheers to you.
I'll see you in about 20 laps.
I wonder if those words will come back to bite him.
10-4.
Damn, just tell him how it is.
I'm not going to argue with him on the point.
I want
We'll
to
see.
in the bush.
We'll see what plays out.
I'll accept that challenge.
I'll take the lead.
I'll take the track position and get some lap sled.
Absolutely. If you're just giving it to me, I'll take it. I'll try to manage the gap and manage my tires from the position of advantage.
Caution.
See, because now a caution comes out,
Man, tell me what you got. Radio check to the
and
guys. 1, 2, 1, 2.
things reset. So
Closed.
Not a lot of Thunderbirds in this one, no.
Behind the safe car.
Thunderbird does not seem to be the most loved car in this series, I've noticed, particularly with the top folks.
yeah, I don't know. Those other Thunderbirds are cool. The Monte Carlo is just a cooler car than the Thunderbird, I think. Like conceptually.
Everyone seems to go with the Monte Carlo. 3 sets, 2 in the pits. We've already used 1, so... you
Yeah,
gotta
can't
save
pit
one, 'cause
here.
Those tires definitely matter.
Can't lose. Yeah, there's no option. Anyone who pitted, which everyone pitted on that first caution, there is no way you're using a set here.
Yeah, that's what they say.
You have an interview with American on Thursday for baggage handler. They called back. Good job, Stray Tail Man. I'm happy for you. Hope the interview goes well. There's a lot of responsibility in that baggage handler position. You're handling sometimes people's valuables. You got to handle those with extreme care. So that's an important thing that you're doing for folks if you get that job.
That's about right. How many does A Fixed get? 5 or something? But the tires are different. That's the thing. Like, you can't really compare the way these tires to the A-car tires.
It's true. Bias ply tires on iRacing work very differently from the radials. The biggest thing in terms of difference, well, there are a lot of differences, but one of the biggest ones is that these tires will get worse very quickly and then level off, and then they will be even, and the differences in wear percentage won't matter that much once they're at the same temperature.
That's so few laps.
For a huge part of the run, there is no difference between old tires and slightly less old tires. Whereas on the radials that are on the more modern race cars, the trucks, the Xfinity cars, the Cup cars, those will just fall off steadily over the course of the run. They will never flatline or hit a point. Now, if you take care of them, if you take care of your tires, you can make that fall off less gradual and eventually settle out to be even with and potentially better than someone who has slightly newer tires than you if they've really abused theirs from the start of the run. But in general, like a 5-lap advantage on tires will always be an advantage in the A car, the B car, or the truck. Whereas with these cars, if you've got 20-lap-old tires versus 25-lap-old tires, there's really no advantage that the guy on 20-lap-old tires has. The reason that relates to the decision we had to make under that caution is because, you know, you could pit there, have 15-lap better tires, but by the time you got all the way up through the field on those to contend with the leaders, you would no longer have any tire advantage against them, and you would have burned your set. So the only way that it would be worth it for you is if you're actually running back in like 15th or 20th place and you felt like the only chance that you had would be to pit there and just bank on it going green the whole way, which it looks like there's one driver that's done that, the number 11 and 10th, or who just moved into the top 10, is on, you can see he pitted on lap 56, so he's on newer tires. But if you watch his lap times, he's quicker than the drivers around him right now, and substantially quicker. He's not quicker than us, but that's largely because he's still in traffic. But by the time he would be able to work through that traffic, he will no longer be putting up, his tire advantage will be gone by the time he's worked through that traffic. Cody sitting right on my bumper. Probably regretting that decision to just let me go at that point in the race. Maybe not. He was pretty confident that his line was better on the long run at saving tires than my line, and he was actually probably right on that point.
Still there. Still inside. Clear low. Still inside.
And he is pressuring me trying to get that track position back. But I've still got it.
Still inside.
As long as I'm able to hold him off. Oh, goodness. They're right there. That was a critical moment in the race. That was the point where he ate his words about saying that he was going to see me in 20 laps, like sort of writing me off there.
I always love good racing.
It was good racing, though. He made him...
rear brake in it, and I backed down underneath you, and about stuff.
That'll happen. Cody's always fit. I don't have a setup where...
Thanks for that follow, much appreciated.
42.
Yeah, 42
Yeah,
is the
that's low.
minimum. I don't run... I run lower brake bias now than I was in this race at North Wilkesboro, but I don't run minimum here. I run minimum most places in this car, but not in this one. And that's just because they set them up so tight. If you had a more balanced setup, you wouldn't be running 42% brake bias.
If I can.
Time to refill the wine.
Hopefully they get to racing each other, though. That'd be great.
Have the Duttons been racing much lately? Haven't seen them in streams. I haven't seen them on either. I don't want to comment too much about what I know on the situation. So like, it's not all bad. I know Cody's got someone new in his life, which is fantastic. So he's focusing on developing that relationship, which is great for him, which means that racing, particularly on iRacing, is taking a back seat for him.
Everyone's staying out.
So, you know, that's a positive development in his life that's changed his schedule, and that's great for him. I've had, you know, the same kind of thing where there are life changes that can happen in your life where you end up focusing, or I end up focusing less on racing, less on streaming, less on the channel.
So, a few more on asphalt.
The
Yeah, braking
other
really
thing,
is,
which I hope
the tracks where you have to do it, it's
gets better as...
The headers look nice on that front.
It's not even necessarily about iRacing not loving you back. It's about, you know, finding someone who does, who you want to spend time with more than you want to spend time with iRacing, if that makes sense. The other thing is that the way that the last season went down between him, the rivalry between Chad and both Cody and Cole got really ugly and came into a head at Martinsville, where Chad spun Cole to get a position, and then there was some other stuff that soured what had been a long friendship that extended back to before any of them were on iRacing between Cody and Chad. And I hate that happened, so I am hoping that as time goes by, that the wounds from from how that season went down will heal, and that Chad won't have his championship tainted by any of those bad feelings, because he should be able to celebrate the achievement of winning that championship without any of the taint of that ugliness. And, you know, hopefully the friendship between him and Cody and Cole can eventually be repaired, but that's going to take some time and probably some, you know, tough or serious conversations between them. So kind of hope that happens, because I think that's really it. The whole situation is just a shame. So Cody actually ended up taking himself out of the race. He got loose, got himself back in traffic, and then I think he either was that caution or was a part of it. I actually forget how that went down, but we'll see in the replays. But it's a very different race now with him not in it, because he had me, I think, covered definitely on the first run, but I was out in front of everyone else. So now I have a new sense of confidence. I've still got Parker Alexander behind me, who I think I embarrassed myself a little bit in thinking that he was a different racing driver named Parker, and so talking about him in a way that
Cody has had the worst luck to start
that cast a different identity on him, which is incorrect. The thing is that Parker is a great sim racer in his own rights, and I didn't need to shower any more praise on him than that.
Feed myself into that gap. That's race over, big time.
I had a tendency to gush a little bit more than I should have in this past year about drivers that I have a great deal of respect for, and I should maybe rein that in a bit in the future. It's a fine line to walk. Only 40 laps to go, 41 laps to go as we hit the line this time. So the laps are clicking off. 120 lap race is a long one, but just like a year, sure feels like it goes by quick when you get to the end of it. Although 40 laps feels like an eternity when you're sitting in front with someone chewing on your bumper. Trying to keep focus and hit your marks without allowing the pressure of the fact that you're leading to seep in situations like this is something that you learn to manage over time. I was so bad at that earlier, and I'm still not great at it. I'm better at it. I got better at it a lot this year. One of the things that I've really felt like I improved on this past year was learning how to close out wins and getting better at that. There were some races in previous years where I allowed wins to slip away, and in this past season, I closed out wins in situations where they could have slipped away, and that made all the difference in terms of, you know, my win percentage and my feeling about the season is very different with the accumulation of the races that I was able to put together that felt good than it would have been had a few of those races not gone the same way. This was definitely one of them. My first and still, at this point, only win at North Wilkesboro in this race.
Love when I can get that launch off.
Anytime when you can cross one of the tracks off the list that you haven't won at is a big deal. And those are treasured. And this one could have gone a very different way.
All right, 34 to go.
Starting to put a little bit of a gap on Parker. Front three of us have put such a big gap over the rest of the field, though. Look at it. I've got half a second back to Parker. Parker's got about the same gap, a little bit more back to Victor. But we're all within a second. And then it's almost 2.5 seconds now between third and fourth. And Brinson, the 11 car, the one who did take tires on lap 56, he has moved his way up to 5th spot. And just lost 5th to the number 6 car, who has the same tires that I'm on. So that right there shows that, we're kind of at that point where he's used his tires to get all the way through the field, but that advantage that he had is clearly no longer there. He's running the same times that the rest of us are now, and the same times that he would be running if he had our tires. So that's still able to net him a gain. He's up 7 spots from where he started. So if this race goes green, even though he didn't get all the way to the front, it's still a net gain. And, again, it's a way for that strategy to work out. If the way that the race plays out means that the other drivers never pit and use their last set, then you can cash in a net gain on position on some of the guys behind you. But if we get another caution here late in this race, and either some of us or a bunch of the drivers that are behind him do pit, then he ends up potentially not being in a great position. But that's the risk that you take. Sometimes in races you decide to make a choice that could net you a lot of positive gain, but may not work out and may have a downside on the other end of that equation. So, sometimes you just feel like you take a shot, and if it works out, you get a much better position than you would have finished at had you continued to stay on the normal strategy that everyone else is on. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and you lose a little bit of I rating, you'll get it back in an additional race.
Okay, he's rolling.
Overall,
That's good.
the way that your I rating balances out and the way it nets out tends to track pretty closely to how you're driving and performing in general. Mr. Sweet, good evening to you. Welcome. How you doing? Cheers. We're 2 days away from New Year's Eve, but we're in that mode where we're putting a bow on 2021.
25 to go. I wish it was 15.
Actually, 3 days away. Today's the 28th, right? Yeah, 28th. 3 days away from New Year's Eve. This video will go up on YouTube. I think that this might be what I put up on YouTube as my sort of year-end review reflection video. I hadn't planned on streaming today, so this was a little bit of an impromptu stream, not on the schedule for what I planned out yesterday. But I was sitting around thinking about what I wanted to do for a year-end review video and thought this might be fun. Just me watching what is in my heart, my favorite race for the year, reminiscing about the year, talking with you guys for a little bit. So yeah. It's interesting. It's a bit of an ego trip watching your own content, but interesting to watch it. Wes Hammer, running with y'all the last year or so has been great. Really, greatly appreciate the help and advice. You've gotten so much better through the year, man. It's been really impressive. You've really improved a lot, and I think that if you find that the biggest thing that will help you in the next year, if you start translating your success in qualifying into race pace, and just getting comfortable with consistently running with the drivers that you're able to qualify with, you're just gonna break through so many barriers in iRating if you just start locking in finishes that are at or near the position where you qualify, because your qualifying has been fantastic the past year. And you've also done, I'm not discounting your finishes. You've been closing out some great finishes and stuff like that, but I see good things for you on the horizon in iRacing should you choose to stick with it, because you've definitely got the raw speed. It's a matter now of harnessing it and consistently putting complete races together.
He's taking a big bite out of my lead all of a sudden.
My driving's gotten real sloppy all of a sudden at this stage in the race. I'm also keeping an eye on the 11 as we go through, because we were talking about him. He was the only one who took tires on lap 56, and he's sitting 6th right now, so he's still holding on to that 7-position gain over his starting spot.
For sure.
Parker is really pressuring me, and we've still got 17 laps to go in this race, so trying to hold on to this lead at this stage in the race right now, it's only 17 laps. It feels like an eternity. And if I was at a different stage in my iRacing career at this point in this race, I would have definitely lost this lead. There were so many races that I had earlier and in previous years where in this very situation I made a mistake, I slipped, or just kind of lost the battle of wills and decided that
15 to go.
I couldn't hold him off, and I'll just kind of let him go and settle for second place, and I'll still make that decision in other situations where I'm just beat. But in this one, I locked in and cleaned up my line a little bit, and I'm holding him off.
15.
Just clicking the laps off now, really trying to focus. You notice that I've gotten really quiet? That's because I'm focusing a lot more on the task at hand.
Stay high if we get to you.
Just a little reminder to the lap car about what the situation is. Gentle reminder will often improve things dramatically. He has nothing to gain by racing with us. He has no one close to him that's for position, so losing a little bit of time right there doesn't mean anything to him. But he may not have moved out of the way for us had I not just delivered that little subtle reminder about what was going on. And, if he does something unexpected and I lose a bunch of time, Parker gets an opportunity that he can capitalize on, and he maybe wins the race as a result of that. See, he's looking high there. And I don't even know if he's trying to get to the high side, although he might not be unhappy with getting there, but he's definitely doing what I was doing early in the race, which is entering high and trying to convert that into a better exit so that he can get underneath me down the straightaway and into the next corner. 10 laps to go here, and have been able to hold on to the lead so far.
Doing a great job, man. 10 to go.
Really wishing they gave bonus points for leading the most laps right about now.
Because, I led the most laps in this race and would like to have those points, because I'm even thinking about points in this stage. That's part of what makes racing fun for me, is the idea that it all happens in the larger context of a championship battle and things like that. That's why I like running official. I also like running leagues, but I like running official because it all feeds into those, globally tracked stats and things like that. I'm a bit of a numbers nerd, so I enjoy that sort of thing. Washed out a little bit right there.
There's no saving tires now. It's just everything.
One of the things that I really improved with this year was my trail braking. You know, I think, still getting better at it in this race. I think I've smoothed it out further from here, but it's definitely something that helped me a lot in this race, and something that's helped me a lot this year is getting better at trail braking. Practicing long runs too. I do that. I do a lot more practice now than I used to, and run a lot less races than I used to, and that's paid dividends.
5 to go.
Using some of my time that I spend on iRacing for practice rather than than just having it all be races on stream, I think has helped me improve more as a racer. Junior Fan. I love running the 87 series, man. There is something special with this series. It's not the most populated on iRacing, but it does have a cool community of folks and a neat vibe. We don't put up with a lot of nonsense either, and I think that's important, that the drivers who are at the top of that series really have a respect for racing etiquette. And when someone comes into the series and starts just knocking people around, we check them on that, and we don't. I at least for my part, I try to not be a complete jerk about it, but we are honest about, you know, not approving of that style of racing, you know, and it does help to sort of police the series and keep it one that's pretty pleasant to be in and race in on a regular basis, I think. It's playing that, you know, that sheriff role that Dale Earnhardt used to play. Here's that last lap, and Parker makes a dive here. And this right here is what locks it in as being such a favorite for me.
That was awesome,
which is
man.
the
Great race. I barely got
to get a win.
That was so much fun, dude.
Where you're side by side making contact at the line, like a quintessential NASCAR style win, is something that happens very rarely, and
like that.
Yeah, getting it like that felt so cool. I have had 3 victories. I think I had maybe 4, because I think I had one at Talladega. And maybe there was one at Daytona, but like at non-restrictor plate tracks, I've had 3 victories where I was side by side at the line with second place, and I've had finishes where I was in second place side by side of the line with the winner too.
Hey, awesome.
One was at North Wilkesboro, and 2 of them were at Charlotte. One of those ones at Charlotte was a league race. The other one was later on
I came here thinking,
in this past year.
Just get a good points day. Lead the most laps, get the win.
Really wish I would have finished off this season and taken the championship in it. I don't even know if this, what was this, 2.9K strength of field? I think this one did end up factoring into my final standings.
Like it should be at a short track. I slipped it. I felt like I let him get.
Do most jobs give you the job after the interview? Some jobs have 1 round of interviews. Some will have 2. It's rare that they will actually give you the job at the job interview. They tend to thank you for your time and say that they will call you back if you've gotten the job. At least that's been my experience. It depends on the job too, so the higher you work up the salary ladder, for lack of a better term, the
Look at all those happy AI people.
looser the process becomes. Sometimes it will take a lot more, like the more rounds of interviews and things like that. Have to pass the FAA background checks.
Let's take a look at that.
I hope you do. I don't know what is involved in that, but my guess is that they don't make you go through those until they've already decided that they're going to hire you. But I don't know. I don't know if that's actually the case. I cannot speak on behalf of American Airlines about what their hiring practices are.
Oh boy. Look at this.
You have to be screened by TSA to even be on the tarmac. That makes a lot of sense, since they don't let anyone else through.
Barely beat him at the line.
That was so close. Look at this. I just want to appreciate this for a second. This was a cool moment. This is something that, even if I get to a point in my life where iRacing isn't a part of it at all, I will always cherish and remember this moment as being something that was really cool. I was thinking of Parker Retzlaff, by the way. I was confusing Parker Alexander with Parker Retzlaff. Parker Retzlaff is the one who runs K&N at ARCA. Parker Alexander is an awesome racer in his own right, and I don't need to be showering praise and things on him that are not actually reflective of who he is. I think there's another driver last name Alexander who does some stuff too, and I was linking Parker and into one name. It's cool winning races in the 87 cars because they really are drivers' cars. That said, winning anything on iRacing, as competitive as iRacing is, as competitive as they make the splits, it's cool winning any race that you're in on this platform, in my opinion. Even if I get into a race where I'm the #1 car and I've got 2,000 iRating over everyone else, that's still, like, closing out that win still means something. First off, because even if I'm I'm over 5,500 now with my iRating, even if I get paired up in a race with a guy that's got 3,000 iRating, there are still guys at 3,000 iRating who are very quick and on any given day can give you real trouble trying to win a race. So just because I've got a 2,500 iRating gap on the rest of the field doesn't mean that it's going to be an easier race. Secondly, I remember when I was at the point in my career where I had less than the 3,000 iRating, and I just wanted so badly to be up there racing for wins with the guys in those splits and races and things like that. So if I am actually able to go out and dominate that kind of split, that's such validation for how far I've come. So it still feels cool. HG, hi, welcome. Oh, hi, John and John. Yeah, I know. It was me and me from the past, both on the same deal. This is my own little self-indulgence that I do after race wins. I know that it's self-indulgent. I know that it's super cringeworthy, but I like to get some screenshots that mark the moment and, kind of cherish the moment and capture that. You only get one chance when you have something cool to capture it in the moment. So for me,
always extra special, of course.
That means taking a few screenshots. And it is really cool for me every time that I win in the Corey Busch car. How do I put this? I've known Corey since 2016. I consider her to be a dear personal friend that I know from back in the day when she had political ambitions and political aspirations. But she was a long shot candidate when I first met her, and she was running for Senate back then, not the U.S. House. She was a Senate primary candidate in 2016. Jason Kander ended up winning the primary and then losing to Roy Blunt at the time.
We were a little bit slow off the jump, dropped back to 4th early on.
So while she was a political candidate at the time, she was still a real person who was running for political office, not a career politician. And she has maintained that aspect of her personality and who she is as a person, despite achieving success in her political career, which is something that is, from what I've observed from the outside, very rare in the political space. And it's possible that the people who know folks who have political careers personally have that same opinion of the folks that they know in that space as well.
This was a great little battle, actually, with Victor for third.
As I reflect on this now, it's very easy and cheap to pass judgments on political figures and public figures when all you know is their public persona. But back to my initial point, knowing Corey from before she was so well known and such a household name the way that she is now is really cool and really special. I am so happy for her to have achieved the success that she has. It's so cool seeing her in Congress, and I just feel like that people like her are the people we need to be putting in Congress, because she really is thoughtful and caring and puts people first in the decisions that she makes there. It's not about her political ambitions. When, the votes that she takes on the floor, the statements that she makes publicly are not about her political ambitions or pushing some ulterior motive agenda. It's really about pushing the agenda of doing what's best for humanity and what's best for American citizens and what's best for St. Louis citizens who she represents and things like that. And that's the way that a representative democracy is supposed to work. The way that it's very critical in a representative democracy that the people filling those positions of power, the representatives who fill those positions, do so in good faith, do so honestly, act honestly and in good faith in the best interest of the people that they represent. That's how it works. If you don't have people honestly and in good faith representing their constituents, representing the best interests of the people that they represent, then the system does break down and does not function as well as it does otherwise.
Run him down pretty good, and he says, I'm just going to open it up here, open up the mic.
So yeah, it's so cool for me, and it really does mean something every time I get a win in the Corey Bush car, more so than it would be for any other sponsor, just because of the friendship that I have with Corey, the reverence and respect that I have for her. It just means more to win in a car that's adorned with her name in what would normally be taken up by a sponsor. That doesn't mean that I won't decide to start running something else on the car in the future, or run something else on other cars. There are other things. I don't want it to be some
rough race for him. Where did he end up finishing? 13th?
Weird thing.
Yeah, I think he called it quits after this one.
But yeah, it's just cool.
But yeah, so pacing.
And the folks here, the folks that I know in the political scene here in St. Louis get a kick out of the car too.
Maybe I don't want to just let him.
Cadell ran a Biden car. So that's the difference, though. Cadell ran a Biden car as a joke, and there were a lot of Trump cars that were out there. There's a difference between running it as a joke and
my whole strategy, the whole race, when I was under assault,
running it as something that's sincere. There is a little bit of vulnerability in doing it.
I don't want to get drilled in the bumper.
Don't know if choosing to lean so hard in on the Corey Bush car and running a political message and a political endorsement on my car had everything to do with the decrease in viewership, but there was definitely a decrease in viewership that happened on the channel over the past couple of years since I started leaning harder in on that. I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable with losing some viewers due to a genuine disagreement in political ideology. If I'm being honest and straightforward about who I am, and people choose to walk away from that, I'm fine with that. At least we're making that choice honestly. You know what I mean?
And he lost it.
And Goodell running the Biden car is a joke. I mean, like, Goodell actually, as far as I know at least, voted for Biden, is open and honest that he endorses Biden in the context. Bush Theodore 2028.
It was him in the 11.
I'm not going to say no. I doubt that I would be Corey's pick for VP, just because I'm not in that space. I've not sought political office myself.
He does come up a little bit. Cody comes down and
I wouldn't say no. That would be really fun, and I think Corey would get a kick out of it.
The 10 gets into it, a couple other guys. If I'd have known there were this many taken in that wreck, I might have.
I do think that Corey would be an excellent candidate for president in 2028 or 2032.
But none of us pit. This was interesting when we go around here.
I think that someone who has essentially Bernie's politics.
I'm not even thinking about it. I'm like, I was sort of
but
thinking about it, but I'm like, I'm gonna stay out. I want
checks different boxes
looking back at
in terms of identity, namely being younger, being black or non-white, and being a woman, would be very helpful in the Democratic primary. I think that a lot of criticism against Bernie, some unfair, some fair, had to deal with him being an older white man. So some of the unfair criticism that went with that was ageist and sexist and racist, not systemically racist. There's a difference between systemic racism and the broader category of racism. But some of the criticism against Bernie for being an older white man was definitely coming from what I think is ultimately an unfair place, and in a place where it didn't necessarily relate to his capabilities as being a competent leader for our country, which is what we should be evaluating when we're making the decision about who we support for president at each stage in the process. We should be evaluating only the candidates who are actually on the table and who we have to cast a vote for, and picking which among those is the best option. Sometimes all the options are not great or options that we don't like, but we should be still taking an honest look at the options that are actually presented for us and making a choice based on that. I think that some of the criticisms, though, were fair. I think that Bernie, as much as I loved and as much as I supported him, I think that there were some blind spots that Bernie had that at least related to his identity. I think that there were some missteps that he made through his campaign that cost him some votes. So I think that in navigating the Democratic primary with all the different complications and layers that are just a reality, I think Corey would actually have a good shot if she chose to seek the presidential office, because some of those things that were used as a negative against Bernie could not be used against Corey. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that her political opponents would choose to use against her, but I think she'd have a good shot. And I think she'd have a good shot in the general election as well, because she speaks, when she speaks publicly to the American people, she speaks from a very genuine place. And I know that, so I'm aware of the negative comments that circle around Corey in the public space. I see some of them. Some of them make me angrier than others. But those attacks are going to happen at any stage in the political process. There is no political candidate that doesn't get negative attacks levied against them. And that those who oppose them, there's really no limit to what those opposed him will
how I have
say.
hypnosis after watching it and fast forward.
I think that
I love
if
how the
given
crowd
the
feels about this
opportunity
thing.
to speak to the
Very
American
happy with how
people
this scheme turned out
at
overall.
on speak to the American people on the platform
Hey,
that
Matthew.
running for president provides, I think that Corey's genuineness, her authenticity will resonate with the American public in a way where she could win. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I don't think that anything in politics is a foregone conclusion, but I think that it absolutely could work. HD, do you think the Democratic Party would allow a more socialist-leaning candidate to run for president? I think that if the voters in the Democratic Party vote for a more socialist-leaning candidate in the way that you phrase it, I don't think that there's anything that the Democratic Party could do to prevent that. At the end of the day, the reason that Bernie was not the nominee in 2016 and 2020 is because Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020 received more votes in the primary. So, you know, I think that there are a lot of different reasons why those candidates received more votes than Bernie. And I think there were some specific things about who Bernie was a person that are different from who Corey is as a person when you take in totality that might make Corey a stronger candidate in, just getting into like horse race discussion, horse race politics and things like that. I think that there are some things about Corey that might yield her a larger share of the Democratic primary vote than Bernie. So I think it's possible. At the end of the day, the Democratic Party is going to be forced to go the direction that the voters within the Democratic Party choose to select for the. That's why I lean into democracy as a concept and push with that first and foremost, is that I really do believe that an honest discussion and an honest reckoning of the issues leads to better results than any other alternative that I've heard.
I started feeling like the right front was starting to fall off at this point.
She'd have my vote too, Wes, if they wasn't clear. But I'm glad you have your. I'm glad you have your vote as well.
Couple laps when you're close to a win, but yeah, 2 to go.
This was such a cool race.
I do make my own schemes. Every once in a while, I'll have one that other folks make, but I usually make my own.
I definitely run more schemes that are not made by myself now, although I still have input on them. But the ones that I run for Monday Night Racing Road to Glory are all made by Gary Sexton, Dirty Air 13 on Twitch. Dude's just an awesome graphic artist. So it's fun running stuff that's made by someone else too. I do like running my own stuff though. It's fun.
Shows the nose, and I'm like, okay. And I back up too much going into 3 there. And then coming off the corner, a little bit too much gas. I get sideways. He
was actually ahead of me at one point coming across the line.
Right at the line there.
I got a little bit loose, just trying to keep and dig into it. And he started coming up the track, and our coming together there was inevitable. You can see the attitude of the cars right here. My car's pointed at his car's pointed at mine. We're going to make contact. There is no avoiding it. We are coming together towards a common point.
And I mean, right there, he's actually in front of me. And then when we hit, he turns sideways a little bit. And I just barely get back in front, and I've got a little bit more momentum.
Yeah, I was just able to keep it a little bit straighter than he was when we made contact.
Right there, get the lead.
So crazy that a 120-lap race and one that went green for so long at the end. Like, I think we had
And then he spins.
Was it a 70-lap run to finish this thing? Comes down to that at the finish.
Part of the race was, let's see, a couple things here.
Class number 3. Finish the battle off.
This deal right here.
Oh, Cody. You know what's fun about this? Is Cody has driven so many flawless races. It's just fun to look at, acknowledge one of the very few mistakes that he made in my time racing with him through 2021. One of the few times where I actually came out on top. Cody beat me so many times this past year. And he even beat me in this season at the end. He recovered from this and ended up going on to beat me in the points, even though I had a pretty solid lead in the points at this stage in the season. So I got him on this day at least. Maybe I'll get him more in 2022 if he decides to come back and race more in iRace and we end up in more races. Maybe I'll beat him in a few more. But he got the better of me in far more races than I got the better of him. 60 iRating gained in this one.
So, yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, please...
Win number 46, I think I'm at 56 now.
Please click that like button, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. And head over to twitch.tv/John__Theodore. Click there to give me a follow. Thank you very much. Peace out.
And that's the end of that video.